Welcome to What School Should Have Taught You. This is a podcast where I share with you all of the lessons to grow and build true wealth. I'm Jeremy Iannuzzelli, and welcome to the Rich Poor Paradox.
Everything school should have taught you in one place. With a property portfolio of over 17 million and an accountancy firm of over 16,000 clients, as well as being an accountant to some of the wealthiest people in Australia, Jeremy Iannuzzelli will be sharing his lessons on everything school should have taught you so you can build the life you want.
So you might be thinking, what is the Rich Poor Paradox? Well, it all starts with the mind. It all starts with the mindset that the more I earn, the more I spend, and potentially the poorer I become. Or the more I earn, the more I save, and the richer that I can become through channels of investment. And I've seen both ends of the spectrum. I've seen the people that are earning $250,000 a year and spending more than they earn on luxury cars, watches, holidays, clothes. And by the end of it, they've got themselves in a debt that they just can't maintain. And on the opposite, I've seen people earning below what I would call now, under today's conditions, the average wage, being able to save and be thrifty with their income, invest, and have a substantial amount of wealth. So it's which side of the paradox are you? The rich side or the poor side? Is your mindset geared for the more I earn, the more I spend? Or is your mindset geared for the more that I can earn, the more that I save, and the more that I can invest? And that's what we're going to debunk today. I'm going to give you a number of different habits that you can adopt to ensure that you don't become the opposite side of that rich-poor paradox, which is now all the hard work that you've done to put yourself in a position to earn quite a bit of money, but it's now what we're going to do with that and how we're going to invest that to make sure that we're on the rich side of the paradox. Now, when you listen to these habits, these are things that you really need to drill down and adopt. Not necessarily just listen to and say that's a great idea, but have this as a method where you continue to follow and adopt and implement in many of the things that you do. We're going to lead into habit number one, which is creating a continuing investment habit. Now, the most common thing I hear from people is that, Jeremy, I don't have $20,000 or $30,000 to invest. They're waiting to get this large sum of cash so they can make a one-off investment purchase. And often I tell people that while it's good to do that and have that savings plan and goal, sometimes it could be even a greater idea to invest what you can, when you can, as opposed to wait. Because we all know the old saying, time in the market is better than trying to time the market. So very important, time in the market is better than trying to time the market. Time in the market to try to get that perfect investment, to make that perfect amount of wealth in the shortest period of time. A great example is the habit of a $5 a week investment. And it could be on a platform that invests in equities, or it could be savings in a bank account. But the main point is creating that $5 a week habit. Why? Because when you start to earn more money, and it could be earning $100,000 or $120,000 a year, all you need to do is that additional cash flow that you're making, we can start to channel that through a $500 a week investment. Now, $5 a week, you're saying, Jeremy, $250 a year, it's not a huge amount. But as I said before, it's not the amount, it's the habit. Because when you do start to earn good money, moving from your $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 or $50,000 a year employment to potentially $100,000, $120,000, $150,000 a year employment or your own business, that's when you've got the habit down pat and the foundation created where that $5 a week investment can turn into a $500 a week investment. And now we're investing $25,000 to $26,000 a year, and we've got a greater compounding return because we've built up our denominator. So it's getting that investment habit in place and building that foundation for a consistent investment habit, which is going to see you yield very strong dividends in the future. On a personal note, my father, and I remember these comments that he made, and this statement resonates with me all the time. Jeremy, while you're living at home, your goal needs to be, you need to save at least 50% of the gross income that you earn. Now, it's gross, not net, being after tax, but gross being before tax. Now, my first job was at Pizza Haven, a local pizza shop that we had in our area. I was working on average between 14 to 16 hours a week. I really had no forms of income prior to that. So every dollar I was getting was more than I had before. And I really saved it because I never had money before. I never had the need to spend any money. So for me, every dollar that I was earning was savings. And there was a bit of a bonus scheme that my father created for me. He said, Jeremy, if you can save your money, I will give you 1% on top of what the bank is providing you as an interest. So that really sparked my desire and my habit for saving. And it was a really good way for him to show me the benefits of compounding return, because every month he would actually show me the amount of interest that I earned on my $200 or $500 or $1,000 that I had to save for that couple months. And it was exciting. It was really exciting to see that I was earning money while I was sleeping, or earning money, not necessarily while I was working. So it was a great habit that I started very early on. And that led into multiple jobs that I was working at the time. I was refereeing soccer on a weekend. I was waiting tables at a wedding reception center on a weekend. And all that additional income that I was earning, I was saving because I didn't have a need to spend. If you're earning more money and starting to spend more money, that becomes a habit or a chain that becomes very hard to break. It's very hard to reverse, and it stays with you for a very long time. Hence the saying of habitual issues. Once it starts, it's very hard to break. Although from a positive point of view, once it starts, it's very hard to change, and change for the good. So it's important to really get this habit of saving, which then can lead to the habit of investing at an early stage. And if you found yourself where you are at that heavy spending phase of your life, do a budget. We spoke about it initially in our first couple of topics, that budgeting is important. Setting challenges with a friend or a budgeting buddy. If you haven't set a budget, rewind to episode 2, where we talk about saving tactics and budget tips to really supercharge your wealth and savings. Quite commonly I get asked, Jeremy, what is a way to start a good investing habit? And these are the answers that I provide people. A great step to start with is understanding your expenses. Knowing what is discretionary and fixed in nature. Discretionary meaning something that we don't have to spend but spend anyways, and fixed meaning that it's there and it's never going to change. Once you understand that relationship between fixed and discretionary, we then can start to work out what we need and what we don't need to spend. Understanding our expenses is probably the most common key to success, because with understanding our expenses, we then have a balance to understand what we can invest and understand what we can save. And when we understand what we can invest in save, we can then start our action plan. And that action plan will lead to a life of abundance once we've compounded that over many years of that habitual process of saving and investing. So again, recapping, and the action point that we need to take out is understanding our expenses, which is discretionary and fixed. Really look in your own expenses. Understand where you have fixed expenses and where the discretional money is walking out the door. Find out ways to rein it in. A good approach is looking at halving your discretional costs if you can. That's a great way to kickstart your savings plan and your investment plan. Now we lead into habit number 2. Now we spoke about this briefly in episode number 2, which is again supercharging your savings. But habit number 2 is getting that budget buddy. Now I really want to go into a little bit more detail around this. Getting that budget buddy is like creating a group of people around you with common interests. If you can find that person who helps keep you accountable, whether it is your partner, a family member, or even a close friend, or a group of people, as I mentioned, with common interests, that's important. Because as we all know, and statistics prove, when we've got multiple people urging each other on for success, like in a team environment, we tend to succeed together as opposed to individually. That budget buddy is there, as we mentioned, for accountability, but also to stir you and keep you in the right direction. And for me, it's always worked. Myself and my wife, we are each other's budget buddy. Now, in the earlier years, I was definitely the one that used to count the pennies. Being a true accountant that I was, my budgets were set in stone and I didn't sway or move from them. As I've started to earn more, we tend to sway in the breeze a little bit, as I've done, and made some big ticket item purchases. But my wife, always been true to core, she's kept me in line and made sure that wherever possible, we've stuck to our budget. So for her, she's been my budget buddy. She's been the person to keep me accountable and the person to keep me on the right path so that we're continuing to save for further investment. So a budget buddy is the accountable partner, which is going to keep you in line and keep you on the path to success. Now, if we don't have any of those people around us, there are professionals out there that can assist you, and a financial planner becomes first to mind. They can not only assist you with your budget, but you can have regular meetings with them where they keep you in line and really track your spending habits and your saving habits, and potentially have the opportunity to give you some really good tips for investment. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a $500,000 property straight away or a $100,000 managed fund. It could be as little as a direct investment on a continuous basis into an ETF of your choice. So there's great ways to get out there and do it, but it all starts with accountability and the right people and the right team around you to keep you on track and moving in the right direction. This leads us into number 3, habit number 3, which is more prevalent now than ever before. Now, it all comes back to the term of delayed gratification. And a great saying that we can utilize is good things come to those who wait and great things come to those who create. Now, it's all part of the delayed gratification process. Now, while we're investing, we are waiting, we are buying our time, but we're also creating. We're creating investments. We're creating a strategy to get to where we want to be. And that's where the great things lie. So I really encourage anybody that don't fall into the trap of the instant life that we live, which is at the click of a button, things are at our doorstep, or at the click of a button, food is at our doorstep. Sometimes enjoying the journey is as good as the destination. And if you can enjoy the journey throughout the whole process, especially when it comes to saving and creating wealth and doing all the things to get to that end destination and enjoying it along the way, there will be wealth at the end of the tunnel, but there'll also be a journey that you've learned that you can then pass on to the next generation. And it's creating all of the education that you need to not only catch the fish, but to continue to catch the fish, which in this case is all about investing and investing wisely. Now, I want to share my story about delayed gratification. I love my property investment. I've been investing in property for a number of years. And people ask me, Jeremy, how did you build a large portfolio of 10 and 15 and 20 plus properties? And I always say to people that the hardest bit was the start. It was getting those first couple of properties under my portfolio and under my belt, which was the challenge. And the reason why was I had to physically save for the deposits of those first couple of properties. Equity wasn't moving in the mid-2000s. We had a GFC. We had a little bit higher interest rates, and definitely wages was not moving in line with inflation, and wages were relatively low. Yes, the argument can be said that property prices were much lower then, but in comparison to wages, it's all relative. However, those first couple of properties, it was excruciating, and I felt like giving up multiple times. It was hard to save. I had a little bit of negative gearing, unfortunately, which means that the costs outweighed the income that was coming in, and I felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. I was reading so many stories about people having 5 properties in their portfolio and 10 properties in their portfolio, and I just couldn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. But I still continued to toil away. I still stayed on my saving strategy plan. I still continued to save as much money as I could, and any additional money that I was earning was going directly to my savings plan and therefore moving forward to my investment plan. Once I started to have 3 and 4 properties under my belt and the market started to move and equity started to grow, it did become a hell of a lot easier, to a point where a large number of the properties thereafter did not come from my savings anymore, but came from the equity that grew within the property portfolio. So I was able to extract that equity and then buy further properties thereafter. But I always tell people that the first 1, 2, and 3 properties that I purchased was excruciating because of the saving strategy that I had encompassed with the expenses that I was incurring on holding those properties. So that was the delayed gratification that I was willing to absorb and take over those large number of years, where the portfolio is self-generating its own income and I really don't have to take care of it anymore. So I really tell people, take the time, go through the journey, create that plan, get that budget buddy as we spoke before, Continue the savings plan. Continue the investment strategy. Have that delayed gratification in mind. Work towards where you want to be and execute on it every day that you continue to follow or save or invest. Now, habit number 4 is something we're all guilty of at some point in time. And it's really about learning to spot your invalid excuses. We all create excuses when something goes wrong or when something doesn't go to plan. But it's about identifying them. And it's about learning to change. And it's about wanting to change. And the best example we can all have is wanting to lose weight while still sitting in bed eating that block of chocolate or that box of Tim Tams. So it's so important that when you can learn to identify when your excuses are invalid, that's where you can push through the barrier and continue on your savings plan and continue on your investment plan. Because in the end, there will be ups and downs, peaks and troughs. There will be movements in economy. There will be movements in financial situations in your life. There'll be love lost. There'll be relationships made, new jobs, lost jobs. But if you can continue on the path and not let excuses creep into your overall investment plan, that's where the success will become very successful. Yes, there might be some slight deviations along the way, but in the end, they're all there to take you to where your end goal was, which was your investment goal that you create at the very start of your journey. On a recap of the rich and poor paradox, it's very easy to understand where things can go very wrong and things can go very right. It's important to understand that you've got a plan and you stick to your plan along the way. As mentioned, there will be deviations that occur along your journey, but simply saying I'm earning more and I can spend more is not the right deviation. And it is a trap that many people still to this day, they fall into. And I just wanted to leave you guys with one really great example from someone who I know personally and been a client of mine for a number of years. And he's well outside the rule of thumb in this particular situation. And I'm going to be a little bit deep and meaningful on it because I feel that it's a great topic and it's a great example and a great person who's been willing to overcome, the realizations that he was never going to earn $150,000. He was a humble mechanic in the automobile industry. He'd been earning probably for the last 20 years no more than $50,000 at that time, and he's well towards his retirement now. And I think when he retired, he was earning about $80,000 to $90,000 as a mechanic. But he's someone who invested over 25 years his money, every chance that he could, into various stocks, various equities, managed funds, and property. He retired with a portfolio in excess of $10 million, and that's net after all loans and debts are taken into account. He's a gentleman that stayed true to himself, identified his excuses, and continued where possible, as every increase that came in his pay, redirected that to a savings strategy and investment strategy as well. He's a gentleman who won't rely on the pension as many other people would in his age bracket on his income. He did dedicate quite a bit of his wealth to superannuation as part of a diversified and balanced strategy, and a large portion of his wealth outside superannuation. He remained consistent in his buying habits with stocks and equities. He remained consistent with his buying habits in the property industry. He's done exceptionally well, and he'll retire with a portfolio value, as I said, of over $10 million and an income well over $300,000 today. So that's a really good example of someone who not necessarily earned a lot of money, but stayed true to his investment plan and stayed true to his savings plan. And I can give you lots of other examples of people who've done very similar to him, and lots of other examples where people have been well earning over $500,000 a year, but have substantial amount of debt on their own home, substantial amount of debt in vehicles, cars, depreciating assets, nice and shiny things that don't add value, and enjoyed their life exceptionally well. But then it goes back to the old term. Live life while you're young. I agree. It's a great way to look at life. But the pessimist in me says, try to work while you're old. So make sure that you are still working towards your goals and working towards your investment plan, working towards your saving strategy. I'm Jeremy Iannuzzelli, and this is the stuff that school should have taught you.